What's up, guys, and welcome to the weekly Q&A. Before we get started, just a real quick shout out and a thank you to the Star Wars Hub, who has been helping me share my videos and just get the word out. So I wanted to say thank you to them. If you don't know who they are, they're a Facebook page with a huge following, and every day they share news and videos and other fun stuff. So if you haven't yet, go check them out on Facebook. There's a link in the description. But that's all I have to say, so we're going to move on to questions. And by the way, the questions this past week were really great, so thank you to everyone who submitted questions, and keep it up. Starting with the patron questions, Ryan O'Rourke asks if I think that Thrawn is going to be in episodes 8 or 9. Personally, no, I don't think so. I've talked about this before, but I kind of think Thrawn is going to die at the end of this season, or maybe just some point in Rebels. But I do think that one season would be enough to tell a similar story to what we saw in the Heir to the Empire, Dark Force Rising, and The Last Command. And we're going to get another new canon Thrawn book out of this. So I kind of think that Thrawn will meet his end at some point in Rebels. But, I mean, that's something that I would be very happy to be proven wrong in. I would love to be wrong about that and keep Thrawn and more Thrawn stories, because everyone loves the character. I love the character. But I think that they're probably going to, when they introduce old Legends stuff, I think it's probably going to be more in Rebels and in comics and books rather than the films. But who knows? Again, I would love to be proven wrong there. Wansaman and Revan Card both basically asked if all of the Force-using characters in Rebels need to die by the series end. That has been a concern of mine ever since they introduced Kanan. We're having all these like Jedi characters, and they were using the whole, well, they're technically not Jedi. Ahsoka's not a Jedi, Kanan's not a Jedi, but now he is, thanks to season 2. And I think it's important that Luke be the last of the Jedi during the original trilogy. So they really need to think up a good, satisfying way to write these characters out of the story. I think that killing them would be the simplest solution, but maybe there's another way. Maybe they will go off into exile in the unknown regions, or like straight up leave the galaxy. Who knows? But I do think it's very important that the writers consider that Luke be the only Jedi in the galaxy at the time. But those are just my thoughts on the matter. Pete Swiggy wants to know if there's anything I would change about The Force Awakens. If I could change one, I guess, segments of the film, it would be the whole Rathtar sequence, basically everything on Han's freighter. I felt like it just seemed out of place with the rest of the film, and it was a little goofy, and just out of nowhere we had these crazy monsters running around, and just whenever I watch it, when I get to that part, it's like the bathroom break part, I guess. So really, other than that, I thought that it was perfect. I loved the whole thing. Even during that part, I had a smile on my face. It's just, I think it's the weakest part of the film. So if I had to change one thing, that's what I would change. Rory Taylor asks why Kylo Ren wanted Anakin's lightsaber so bad, and how he knew it was Anakin's. I guess I interpreted it as he can kind of sense his grandfather, like maybe there was an imprint left on it. I imagine he hasn't ever seen it before. Again, this is just in my head. We don't have any confirmation either way. It's possible Luke recovered the lightsaber at some point, and Kylo recognizes it because he's seen it. But I think it's more likely that he just sensed it in the Force, and he was like, that belongs to me. He doesn't really know why, he just knows that it does. But I guess it also belongs to Rey, so we don't know what that means. But that's, I guess, why does he want it though? Just because maybe the Force is calling out to him, because he knows that it's his grandfather's and he just wants more of his heirlooms. That's how I interpreted it anyway. Finally, for patrons, Andrew Siner wants to know if I could recanonize any Legends, Rebel or New Republic ship, what would I canonize to bring back into like episode 8 or something? Ewing all the way. I have always loved the Ewing. It's supposed to be like the best of both worlds between the X-Wing and the A-Wing. It's supposed to be perfectly balanced, and I love Battlestar Galactica, and the E-Wing looks a lot like a Colonial Viper. So That's also it's what I fly a lot in the X-Wing miniatures game. It's one of the only ships. It was one of the first ships that I got for myself outside of the core set. So I really have a soft spot for the Ewing, especially in Legends. So I'd love to see that come back into the canon one day. Thank you to all the patrons that left questions this week. They were really great, and it was hard to choose a top 5 this time around. But if you didn't see your question answered in this video, go to the weekly comment thread over on Patreon, and I left you a written response there. Also, if you're not a patron and you're interested in helping the channel out with small monthly donations, there's a link in the description where you can go learn more. On to YouTube questions. Sir Squirrel asks what I think of the theory that Han Solo dreamt Indiana Jones and all of his adventures while he was frozen in carbonite. Obviously, I don't think that that's even remotely canon, but I do happen to love Indiana Jones as well as Star Wars, so really anything to, even if it's a joke, to join the two universes together, I find to be a lot of fun. And speaking of, there is actually a comic that does that where Han and Chewie crash land on Earth, and then Chewie becomes the Bigfoot, and I think it's in South America, and Indiana Jones and Short Round have a little adventure with them. It's pretty interesting, so if you haven't seen that, you should find it and check it out. Nuntoot, and I hope I said that right, wants to know who my top 5 canon female characters are. I gotta start with Bazine Natal, because that character, or the short story by Delilah Dawson, Perfect Weapon, that story got me my first video that broke 1 million views, so I'm very grateful to Delilah and Bazine, and really just the character that she wrote. Next, I'm going to go with Sienna Ree, because Lost Stars is still my favorite new canon book. I've got to go with Grand Admiral Rae Sloane. I think that she has been one of the best additions to the new canon. I love how we get to see her go from private to Grand Admiral over the course of all these different novels and short stories. She reminds me kind of Captain Pelion, and the way that we get to see this whole career spread out over different stories. I really love that. And then, I was trying to stick with, I guess, lesser known characters, but I gotta go with Rey and Princess Leia, because I just love them both. Princess Leia was my first female heroine when I was growing up, and then I also just happen to love Rey. I don't really find her skills at everything to be a huge detriment to the film, especially reading all the other stories, and they explain why she knows how to do all these things. It kind of annoys me when everyone talks about how she's a Mary Sue and everything, because I don't think that, and she's not perfect. She has all this emotional baggage. She's so I don't want to get into all that, but yeah, those are my top 5. We got Bazine, Sienna, Sloane, Rey, and Princess Leia. Joey and Gotti brought up a really interesting point, suggesting that Darth Maul and Grand Admiral Thrawn might team up this season. Now, I don't know that that'll happen, but I kind of want it to ever since he suggested that, because it would really kind of parallel what happened in the original Thrawn trilogy, where Thrawn teams up with a Dark Jedi named Joruus C'baoth, and C'baoth is kind of working with Thrawn, but really he has his own agenda of taking or converting Luke Skywalker to the dark side. And in this story, Maul could be C'baoth, and Ezra could be Luke's version in this adaptation of the Thrawn trilogy, if season 3 were to kind of follow the same pattern. And I kind of want it to. And now, ever since you said that, I kind of want that to happen, at least to some degree. I think it would be really interesting just to see Maul and Thrawn meet and talk, period, despite any previous history of Legends. But yeah, I would be totally on board if that happened. Theodore Jones wants to know how I would feel about Commander Cody returning, and I would love it, and I think it would be a huge missed opportunity if they don't cover that at some point, because it would be like the anti-Rex. It's someone who they were friends during the Clone Wars, and we grew to love both of them, but then they went their separate ways when Order 66 came around. So if they were to meet back up, they would both consider each other traitors. Would they fight? How would that conversation go? I would love to see that dynamic. So yes, totally on board with that too. And the final question of the day, and I'm so sorry for what I'm about to do to your name, but it's from Avend Sturfelt, and he wants to know if I could write a comic about anyone, who would it be? Not Biggs. First of all, I love that that's a qualifier because everyone knows that I would just say Biggs. So, a comic about someone else. I mean, I loved the old Rogue Squadron comics, and I guess this seems like a cop-out if you're saying I can't write about Biggs, but I would love to see more about pilots, but I'll try to get away from that. I think I would like to see some comics about the lesser-known new characters that we've had, like kind of like the old Tales of the Jabba's Palace or Tales from Mos Eisley Cantina, like those books that used to be. I think it would be cool to have like an anthology series of comics where we could see one about like Grumgar and all those wacky characters at Maz Kanata's palace. I think I would try to do something like that, because if I were to write it, it wouldn't be about anything like or anyone super important. So if I did something that people didn't like, it would be easy to like just sweep it under the rug and forget it ever happened. I wouldn't want to be in charge of like a beloved character and mess things up. That's too much pressure. That's all the time for questions I have today. Thank you to everyone who left questions. I'm sorry I couldn't get to all of them, but if you want to leave a question for next week's Q&A, just put it in the comments down here or follow the link to Patreon, and we have a weekly Q&A thread over there. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. As always, thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you.